In 1925, in a village in the Nandi Hills of Western Kenya, a 6-year-old girl was taken from her bed. The villagers heard nothing, no roar, no scream. She was there, and then she wasn't. In the morning, they found tracks in the mud outside her hut. The tracks were large, broad, and unlike anything they recognized. Not a lion, not a hyena, not anything that belonged in the catalog of predators they had lived alongside for generations. The village sent for the government. A British administrator named Captain William Hitchens arrived to investigate, but the Nandi people already knew what had taken her. They had a name for it. They called it the Kerit. The Nandi people did not consider the Kerit a spirit or a story. They considered it a danger. For as long as their oral history extended, the Nandi and the neighboring Kipsigis people spoke of a creature that lived at the edges of the forest. It emerged at night. It preyed on livestock. Children were warned about it. Certain paths were avoided after dark. The descriptions were consistent. A large, powerfully built animal, higher at the shoulders than at the hindquarters. Thick, shaggy hair, reddish-brown. A long pointed head, small ears. It stood on its hind legs when it wanted to see, and it had a habit that separated it from every other predator the Nandi knew. It went for the head. Not the throat, the way a lion kills. Not the limbs, the way a hyena dismembers. The skull, crushing damage. Injury so severe that the Nandi word for what it did to its victims translates, roughly, to scalping. The Nandi people called it Chemosit, the Kalenjin word for demon. When British settlers arrived in Western Kenya in the late 1800s, they were warned. Geoffrey Williams, a farmer in the Nandi Hills, was told not to sleep with his tent door open. The Nandi explained that the creature they called the Shivuvere was nocturnal, very rare, and attacked solitary people who never returned to tell the tale. Williams didn't take the warning seriously. Then, on a march near Surgoit Rock, he saw it. He described an animal sitting on its haunches, no more than 30 yards away. Its attitude was just that of a bear at the zoo asking for buns, he wrote. He estimated it at nearly 5 feet tall, larger than any bear he had seen in captivity. Heavily built, with thick fur on the forequarters and legs, but comparatively bare on the hindquarters. A long pointed head, small ears, dark in color. He fired his rifle at it as it shambled away. He missed. It stopped, turned its head, and looked at him. Then it was gone. Over the following years, other settlers reported the same thing. Edward Hickes, a railway engineer building the Magadi line in 1913, saw one near the tracks, lion-sized, tawny, shaggy, running with its forelegs while both hind legs rose at the same time, an ungainly, loping gait, unlike any hyena he had ever seen. Clement Toulson, a farmer near Soy, saw one shuffling past his kitchen in the dark. Nigel Corbett, the district commissioner at Eldoret, walked into one, drinking at a stream. Thick, reddish-brown hair. Larger than a hyena. Something he had never seen before. None of them could identify what they had seen. Around 1914, near the heavily forested area of Kapsawar, something began killing people. It wasn't a single attack, it was a pattern. Villagers disappeared. Livestock were found with crushed skulls. The attacks were always at night, always at the edge of the forest, always targeting the head. The people of Kapsawar set a trap. They placed a dummy man in the doorway of a hut. It was a figure designed to look like a sleeping traveler. Then they waited. The creature came. It attacked the dummy, and the villagers who had been hidden in the surrounding brush shot it to death with arrows. No specimen was preserved. No body was studied. Whatever was killed at Kapsawar was buried and forgotten. The Nandi people had their own story of a similar encounter. Years earlier, a Chemosit had climbed onto the roof of a hut and broken through. It killed the people inside. The survivors didn't try to fight it. They burned the hut to the ground with the animal still inside. Captain Hitchens, the colonial administrator sent to investigate the 1925 abduction, documented a pattern that was consistent across every account he collected. The creature waited in trees near roads, it intercepted travelers, it ripped their heads open, it attacked women who were washing at the river's edge, it targeted the head, it always targeted the head. Africa has no bears. It never has, not in recorded history. The only bear species ever to exist in sub-Saharan Africa was the Agriotherium, and it went extinct 2 million years ago. Nonetheless, every European who saw the Nandi bear described it with the same word, not because it was accurate, but because nothing else worked. Science has offered explanations. In 1923, paleontologist Charles William Andrews suggested it might be a surviving Chalicotherium, an extinct mammal with claws and a sloped back. Louis Leakey, the legendary paleoanthropologist, agreed in the 1930s. He later abandoned the theory when it was pointed out that Chalicotheres were herbivores. Zoologist Reginald Innes Pocock insisted the reports were simply spotted hyenas. The British Natural History Museum agreed in 1932, stating that most Nandi bear reports had, quote, proved to have been nothing more than a spotted hyena. George Gaylord Simpson, one of the most influential paleontologists of the 20th century, dismissed it as a honey badger. The people who lived alongside hyenas, who had names for them, who knew their tracks, who understood their behavior, disagreed. In 1957, a man named Douglas Hutton, the manager of the Chemosit estate in the Nandi district, shot 2 specimens of an animal he could not identify. They stood almost 3 feet at the shoulders, heavy mane of long hair, broad short heads with small ears, rearward sloping backs, long heavy forelegs, shorter hind legs. None of the staff at the tea factory had ever seen anything like them. Hutton sent the skeletons to the Corendon Museum in Nairobi, now the National Museum of Kenya. The museum issued a report. The identification was not spotted hyena. It was not honey badger. It was a term that has haunted cryptozoology ever since. They called it a giant forest hyena. An animal that does not exist in any zoological catalog, and then, like every other piece of physical evidence in the history of the Nandi bear, the specimens vanished. The museum has no record of them. In February 1998, a construction engineer named Dennis Burnett was driving home at night along the Koru Kisumu Road, skirting the base of the Nandi escarpment. It was pouring with rain. A large animal stepped out in front of his car. Burnett and his wife stopped. They reversed. They turned their high beams onto the roadside. They saw it for 15 seconds. An enormous, shaggy animal, larger than any hyena either of them had ever seen, moving with a heavy, deliberate gait into the forest. It was the last sighting ever recorded. Since 1998, there has been nothing. The forests that once covered the Nandi highlands have been cleared. The tea estates have expanded. The habitat that sustained whatever the Nandi people called the Kerit, whatever the settlers called the Nandi bear, is gone. The Nandi people never called it a monster. They called it a danger, something that bled, left tracks, and could be driven off or killed. It behaved like an animal. It just wasn't an animal anyone could name. The British Museum said it was a hyena. Louis Leakey said it was a prehistoric survivor. A museum in Nairobi called it a giant forest hyena, and then lost the evidence. Everyone who saw it is dead now, or silent. The forest that hid it is gone, and whatever moved through the highlands of Western Kenya for over a century, killing livestock, crushing skulls, taking children from their beds, has either gone extinct or has simply retreated beyond the reach of anyone left to describe it. The monsters were never imaginary. We just got comfortable. If you want more stories like this, real ones, documented ones, the kind that don't need embellishment to terrify you, then please subscribe and stay close. And don't forget to follow us on social media where you'll get all of the latest updates and sneak peeks.